Hannah Murray on TRE in the afternoon.
Joining us on the line now is Rax King, the award-nominated author of TRE, a boldly funny, warts-and-all tour of the bad habits that make Rax who she is. Her new book, Sloppy, or Doing It All Wrong, includes her trademark blend of irreverent humour and heartfelt honesty, and is a new collection of personal essays unpacking bad behaviour. The book explores sobriety, begrudging self-improvement, and the habits we cling to with clenched fists. Welcome to the show, Rax.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And how does it feel kind of bearing all in these books and kind of telling everyone your deepest, darkest secrets? Is it a bit scary or is it kind of cleansing?
I guess my honest answer to that question would have to be that I am not telling you guys my deepest, darkest secrets. I'm telling you guys things that are very embarrassing for the average person that don't even register for me because I have had such a chaotic life.
Oh, okay. So how does this one, Sloppy, differ from Tacky?
I would say Sloppy is a little bit heavier thematically. I mean, the big difference in terms of process is that I was still very much drinking and using when I was writing Tacky, and Sloppy, not so much. In fact, a lot of the essays in Sloppy are about getting sober and trying to overcome addiction. And so, thematically, there's a lot of distance between lighthearted takes on pop culture and still relatively lighthearted takes on messing up my life.
Because you talk about in the book coming from kind of alcoholic stock, talking about your parents' dedication to 12-step programs and your family history and how it kind of lent to your own sobriety.
Yeah, I mean, I see my family history almost as playing the role of like a prophecy. Like as a small child, my parents were so open about their histories with addiction and about their sobriety that it felt completely inevitable that I was going to go through the same struggles. And obsessing about it was the thing maybe that made me go through those struggles. I just could not stop thinking about alcohol and drugs from a very young age. And at first I was thinking about it from the angle of, I should never do any of this. And then as I got older, it switched. It became inevitable in another way.
Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about your sobriety journey and how you've come to stop?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the day that I quit was just a same old hungover day as any other day. And at that point, I was waking up basically every morning with a terrible hangover, just sick to my stomach, in awful shape. And that was the day I said no more. And so I put the substances down that day. And for a long time, I was really resistant to things like 12-step recovery, rehab, parts of what you might call the recovery industrial complex or something. I was really resistant to all that stuff. But at a certain point, I just decided I really cannot do this alone. I am white knuckling this. I've got my teeth clenched every minute of the day. I need a sober community. And so that's where my sobriety is at now. It's a social thing for me.
Yeah, that people say that's a big difference, isn't it? If you're used to going out with your friends and everybody's drinking, to suddenly to keep on going out with the same group of friends and being the one that isn't drinking, that can be really, really difficult. So it can make a huge difference making some sober friends.
Yeah, it did make a huge difference. I mean, I'm still friends with some of the people I used to party with, but you're right. It was deeply uncomfortable to go out with people who, an hour into the evening, they're blackout wasted. And I'm just like sitting there with a Diet Coke, feeling rage that this is the kind of night I have to have for the rest of my life. And it makes a huge, huge difference to have a group of people now that when we all go out together, we're drinking sodas together and we're doing some activity that doesn't center around substance use.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key, and it is finding a community. And I think you can say that with anything, you know, finding your people, finding your tribe, being around people who are in the same kind of place as you and wanting the same things. And that must really help with sobriety.
Yeah, I think the importance of finding some like-minded community in any setting really can't be overstated. And, you know, this book, Sloppy, it's not just about sobriety. It's about bad habits of all kinds. And in every case, pretty much, whether it's a bad habit revolving around addictive behavior or some other kind of personally detrimental behavior, the answer has been to strip the shame out of it and turn the behavior into something I can talk about and something that other people can relate to.
Another thing you talk about in the book, which I'm interested to find out more about, you talk about your poorly managed mental health. What do you mean by that?
So there's an essay in Sloppy about the time that I had to go inpatient. I had to go to the psychiatric hospital for a week. I think it was exactly a week. And at the time, I really didn't take I guess you'd call it an outing. I didn't take the outing seriously at all. I went and I just felt trapped and miserable. I didn't want to be there. And that's kind of been my approach to mental health. I mean, it was for a long time. I like to think I have a better handle on it now, but for a long time, taking care of myself mentally was just some boring homework that I had to do. It wasn't something that I took seriously or that I got any fulfillment out of.
Gosh, so you must have like really turned your life around now to the point where the idea of having that control on your life, control with your mental health, control with what you do or don't put in your body, it must be liberating.
Yeah, I think liberating is a good word for it. I mean, at first, you know, it just felt like such a chore. It felt really unfair that I had to take this level of control over myself when other people did not feel that need. It felt like I was being ripped off of something that I had gotten a lot of enjoyment out of. But the longer time goes on, you know, the more I realize I didn't get all that much real enjoyment out of, you know, being blackout obliterated every night. And there are whole stretches of time in my life that I just can't remember for that reason. And it's much more enjoyable and freeing to go through my day knowing that whatever I do, whatever mistakes I make, they're my mistakes. They're things that I am choosing to do in my right mind. And they're not things that I have to apologize for later as if somebody else did them.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I'm not one for regrets. I think it's sad and a shame to have regrets. But do you regret some of your choices? Do you wish that you could have become sober earlier, or do you feel that it happened at the right stage in your life for whatever reason?
I wouldn't say I have regrets. No, I think certainly certain things, if I could do them over again, I would do them differently, knowing what I know now. But I think I got sober when I needed to. And I think if I had done it earlier, most likely I would have given up on it by now. I would have felt like I was missing out on something that I just couldn't give up yet. And I think that, you know, for all that sobriety was something within my control, for a long time, it sort of wasn't. It wasn't something I could just choose to do. So I think that once that choice became meaningfully available to me, I took it and continue to take it.
Yeah. Yeah, they say with any type of addiction, it has to be a choice from within. You know, everyone will have gone through some kind of experience, no doubt, of either with themselves or with other people, the idea of being told that they need to stop smoking, or telling a loved one that they should really stop smoking or cut down on drinking or whatever. And you know, people will know that smoking isn't good for you or drinking too much isn't good for you. We all know these things. But at the same time, you can't be told, can you? It has to be something that comes from within. And it's kind of difficult to explain as to how and why that moment can happen.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of talk in 12-step recovery about the rock bottom moment, the moment when an addicted person has lost so much control of their life and has gone so deep into the pit that they've hit the bottom. There's nowhere to go but up. And it's become sort of a controversial concept because a lot of people now, recovery being as widespread as it is, they don't hit that true rock bottom. They get out before things get that bad because they don't want things to get that bad. And that rings true for me. Like, there was a point that I would not necessarily characterize as rock bottom, where regardless, I just felt like, okay, this is as bad as I'm willing to let things get. I don't need to see how much worse they can get. I know they can get worse, but I don't want to be along for the ride anymore.
Yeah. You also talk about different jobs and things that you've had, being a waitress and things like that. How did your addictions impact your working life?
Well, I am sort of a pathologically bad employee, I think, regardless of addiction.
Oh, no.
Because, I'm lazy. I got problems with people telling me what to do. I really don't like to do what people say. It's not great, but, talk about the restaurant industry. I mean, I'm not going to say it was a boon to be addicted to uppers in the restaurant industry, but it's really, really common for a reason. Those jobs are hard and often thankless. And the sorts of drugs that sharpen up your brain and make you able to, they expand your capacity to remember things and to juggle tasks and whatnot. And I did a lot of those drugs when I was working in restaurants. And I think that, even with me being as bad an employee as I am, they did help. So in that sense, it was kind of almost backwards. Drug addiction is supposed to get in the way of holding down a job. And in this case, I think it was the opposite.
And what would you say it might be a sort of weird or difficult question to answer, so don't worry if it is, but what would you say to young people who are kind of easily influenced and getting into the scene of going out with their friends and wondering whether to experiment with alcohol and drugs and all these kind of things that can happen at a young age? What kind of advice would you give?
I mean, broadly speaking, I am in favor of experimentation. I'm in favor of carefully, feeling around the borders of your cage and finding your limits. And I think there should be less stigma about experimentation. There should be less stigma, too, about deciding the experimentation has gone too far and saying out loud, I don't want to live like this anymore, and having somewhere to go from there. Because I think that a lot of the serious ugliness of addiction, the lives lost and people imprisoned, I think that a lot of that pain can be sidestepped if addiction is just treated as what it is. It's an honest part of life. It's often an ugly part of life, but it's a part of life that if people want to overcome it, they can.
Yeah. I suppose it's just a lot of parents fear that their child would experiment with drugs and therefore get addicted. There's obviously lots of young people who do experiment with drugs, and it is just an experiment. They might, depending on the drug, might see it as a bit of fun, something they just did when they're young, and then they grow up and they grow out of it and they stop doing it. And I suppose it's every parent's fear that their child could be the one that goes on to try harder and harder drugs and becomes addicted, and it ruins their life. And I suppose it must be very difficult for parents to know whether your child is likely to go down that route or not, and what they can do about it.
I mean, it's interesting you say that, because with my parents, the flip side of that prophecy vibe that I was talking about is they were just as convinced as I was that addiction was going to be unavoidable for me. And I think that the way they handled it, it often seemed hands off to me. It seemed like I was getting a lot of runway to make mistakes, and I was, but I never felt like my parents wouldn't be there to take care of me once I was willing to be honest with them. And that time did come with my mother, and she's been nothing but great through my sobriety journey. I mean, I think it was probably for the best that she never put her foot down and said, you just have to stop drinking. You just have to do it, or else, we're not going to be, I'm not going to look after you ever again. I think it was ultimately good for me that I knew I could be honest with her and she wouldn't reject me for it.
Yeah. No, that's really lucky. That's the sad reality is a lot of kids don't always have that stability, do they? They can't always confide in their parents, which is a bad thing. And their parents aren't necessarily always going to be there for them. And that's why a lot of these things can take a dark turn, because those two things aren't in place.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think too that parents and loved ones of people struggling with addiction often end up in this really thankless position where the kind of help they can give that would actually be helpful, the kind of support that would be helpful, the actively addicted person doesn't really want it. What they want oftentimes, or at least what I wanted, was money. And I wanted, people to look the other way when I was making a mess of my life. I wanted to be able to behave shamefully without consequences. And so people end up in this thankless position where they need to set boundaries. I mean, you can't let a person struggling with alcoholism eat you out of house and home and take all your money away. It's not good for them. But then again, you also want to relay to that person that, no, I'm not going to give you every last dollar out of my wallet, but I am here for you in ways that will actually benefit you when you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a difficult one as well, isn't it? Knowing if you're living with an addict or you have a close friend who's an addict, it's knowing what the right thing to say and do is, because you want to be supportive. You don't want to be a nag. You don't want to be constantly saying, you need to stop. But at the same time, you don't, as you say, necessarily want to give them loads of money so they can go out and take more drugs. Or it's very, very difficult as the loved ones, I think, of an addict.
Yeah, it's just this constant balancing act. And I will say, too, I mean, I hugely feel for people who are in this unenviable position of having to know how to manage their relationship with someone struggling with drug addiction. I will say to those people who I'm sure are often very frustrated and unhappy with the situation they're in, I can promise you it is worse for the person you're dealing with. It is just this constant daily struggle with shame and self-loathing. And, as an active drunk, I absolutely took out my shame and self-loathing on people around me. And I made a lot of people really unhappy. And I said hurtful things and did hurtful things. And it was awful for the people around me. Inside my head was so much more awful. So I guess, to the extent that there are people struggling to know what to do for the addicts in their lives, I guess I would ask them to bear that in mind, that, you're struggling to understand how to help someone and how to maintain your own boundaries. Meanwhile, that person is struggling with the complete collapse of their life, most likely.
Yeah. And before you made that decision to become sober, how did you feel about how you were and your choices? Did you think that you had a problem, or did you just think, well, that this is me, I don't care, I'm happy doing what I'm doing? How did you kind of context it?
Well, I suppose one interesting thing about having grown up with the gospel of 12-step recovery so much is I never didn't know I had a problem. I mean, from the first drink, I'm sure I thought something like, well, here we go. Let's
really?
get on this ride. And I always knew it was going to be something I had to deal with. And to that end, as I was chugging along, making the types of mistakes that addicts love to make, I just kept thinking, like, really, Rax? Like, we're really doing this? You know better. And it just didn't matter, which I guess it goes back to what we were talking about that pull that these unhealthy behaviors have on us, is you can know at the very core of your being that what you're doing is wrong and messed up and unhealthy, and just keep pressing that button over and over.
So how do you feel now? How do you feel about yourself and your life now you're sober?
Oh, I'm normal now. I'm fixed. Everything's fine. No, I mean, the thing about getting sober is that it takes away a faulty coping mechanism for sure, but it's still a coping mechanism. And it was the one that I relied on to the exclusion of all others for a long time. So I kind of had to meet myself all over again. I had to learn what kind of person I actually was when this crutch was taken away from me. And I'm still doing that. I'm still like kind of watching myself from the outside sometimes, trying to get a handle on what kind of person I really am underneath it all. But I like myself much better now, for sure.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, I guess you have so much more time to do what you want, you know, without alcohol and drugs and hangovers and things getting in the way. You can look ahead at your weekend or time off work or whatever and go, right, what shall I do? Where shall I go? Who shall I hang out with? And you have a lot more choices, I guess.
Oh, the time thing is so huge. I mean, for all that I knew I was an addict, I didn't really realize how much time was getting sucked up into addiction management, like how much time I spent either thinking about drinking or the next morning, like throwing up and head throbbing because I had drunk too much the night before. Like that was pretty much 24 hours a day was devoted to drinking and using in one way or another. And so now I have like 24 more hours in a day and I'm able to pursue actual interests other than just tinkering with my moods.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. I bet all your loved ones and friends and everyone are like over the moon for you.
Well, they're so relieved. They're so relieved not to be getting hit up for money anymore or getting weird texts at 4 a.m, all that stuff.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing part of your journey with us. If people want to get a copy of your book, it's called Sloppy. It's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Rax King, who we've been chatting with. Rax, thank you so much and well done.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too.